Welcome everybody to the Cult Popture podcast, where Richard and I have just spent the last 10 minutes trying to figure out what a song was that was stuck in my head, only to find out it's one of the most famous songs ever written. It was Starman by David Bowie was stuck in my head, and I was like, Richard, what is this song?
What we had to go on was which now that I'm doing it, I'm like, of course that's Starman.
We have fun off-pod here as well as on-pod. Now, we just have to match that fun by doing a little podcast. My name is AJ, if you haven't met me before. This technically isn't you meeting me. I haven't met you, or maybe I have, and if that's the case, then how are you? And also Richard is here. Richard, it's nice to meet you.
And also with you.
Thank you so much. This is Film Franchise Fortnights, our little show on the Cult Popture podcast.
Just our dumb little show.
Our dumb little show, where we cover a different fortnight every franchise.
What? AJ!
I'm kidding. I'm joking. We cover a different franchise every fortnight. Sometimes those franchises will be short little flash-in-the-pan franchises like the one we're going to talk about in a moment. Other times they'll be 47 movies long and be about a talking dog.
Well, that doesn't happen very often, though, to be fair.
So often does it not happen that
that most of our episodes aren't that.
Yeah, and when we do one of those ones, we don't give ourselves any kind of like well-earned break from the project.
We took a well-earned break beforehand, but we were secretly working.
Yeah, which is not a break, I would say.
Officially,
if anything, it's more work.
Yeah, because not only do you have to do the work, but also the added work of keeping it a secret.
Something I'm very bad at doing. But today, Richard, you and I are going to discuss the Kissing Booth trilogy.
Wow.
Which is a little series that was voted for over on our Patreon, patreon.com/cultpopture. It was voted on over there, and it's by our patrons for it to be the franchise we're watching this fortnight, and we watched it, and here we are to discuss it. It is a series of Netflix original teen movies, which debuted in 2018 and was followed up in 2020 and 2021 respectively, based on the novel series of the same name by the author Beth Reekles. And I don't know, Richard, how to say what I need to say about this franchise without first getting this out of the way. This franchise is awful.
Well, spoilers for the rest of the podcast.
This franchise should be kissing Booth my fucking nuts, dude.
Wow.
That's what I've written down.
Wow. Wow, that wasn't just off the cuff.
Nothing ever is. I'm not an off-the-cuff guy.
Wow.
I think I'm all right at making things sound off the cuff, but most of it is attached firmly to the cuff.
So the whole time we were doing the Scooby-Doo episode, I was wanting to be like, hey, AJ, I'm going to send you all the notes I've written for Scooby-Doo so far, which... Other than when I wrote notes while making the film, other than that, was nothing. But then I was worried that I would send it to you and be like, yeah, Richard, it's pretty fucking obvious you haven't had a plan for any of these. So that's why I didn't send it to you. But I have a document on Google Docs, which is where I, every time we do one of these, make a doc and, you have all this information in it. I have one called Scoobit-Doo. And it's about a page long, and it's like, I occasionally would paste in like one thing that I'm like, I have to remember to say this.
In a way, it's like people listening to this show, they get, they're listening to two podcasts in a way. One that is meticulously researched and planned and scripted, and one that's just like something you half remember off IMDb, maybe, if you're lucky.
Ow.
Wow, okay, that did not get the uproarious Richardian laughter.
No, it actually got the downroarious Asian having my heart ripped in two.
Wow.
We're
all about...
Which I associate more with you than myself.
Thank you so much. Richard, maybe this series sucks because of its rushed production. Maybe this series... sucks. Yes.
Sorry,
okay.
I forgot you have a planned thing.
This.
I forgot you have a planned thing. Yes.
Sorry, let me start from the top. Maybe it sucks because of the rushed production, the bad acting, or the asinine storytelling, but maybe also it sucks. Such great writing, you can tell I scripted it ahead of time. Because Beth Reekles, the author of the novels, is currently 27 years old, meaning the first allegedly $11 million film that was made based off her work was based on source material written in 2012 by a 16-year-old. The Kissing Booth novel was written by a 16-year-old, could you tell?
So when I found this out at the start of this, when I started the first movie, and I couldn't believe that. And then I watched the movie, and then I found it very easy to believe. But interesting you talk about the rush production of it, because I remember a few years ago you said that this didn't count as a franchise because of how quickly they came out, which was a crazy statement to make at the time. It's crazy now.
Can we not pretend like I actually think that? Can we acknowledge I was expressing feeling through maybe inaccuranisms?
Inaccuranisms. Wow.
It's like a
God,
an
stick to
inaccurate
the pre-written stuff, AJ.
aphorism. Is that the word that I was thinking
an
of?
inaccurate acronym.
Anachronism.
An anachronism is
anachronism.
That's when you have something that doesn't fit in the time period.
Okay, maybe I was trying to throw apocryphal in there as well, even though none of that. What were you saying?
I don't know. I've forgotten because I didn't write it down. No, it's just but I remember you having issue with the fact that it felt manufactured to be a trilogy or something, but I was like, kind of makes it more of a trilogy, if anything.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't think I should be beholden to things I said 2 days ago, let alone 3 or 4 years ago. So that's my position.
I agree you shouldn't be beholden to things you said 2 days ago, but I think 3 or 4 years ago, I think you have to stand by that.
The novel was originally written chapter by chapter on Wattpad, which is a story-sharing site that listener of the show, Bit More Cheese, works for, and reached out to me and said, hey, I work for Wattpad. Can I help you with anything with the Kissing Booth? And this was 2 weeks ago.
And I said no.
I said, what's Wattpad? I don't understand why you would message me about this. And he's like, it'll make sense when you did the research. And Richard, I started the research 3 hours ago and was like, okay, and I messaged Bit More Cheese and I said, were you working for them when the Kissing Booth movies were being made? And he said no. So, that's the end of the Bit More Cheese contribution to the episode.
Wow.
The novel was, Wattpad is a story-sharing site. I'm sure you can imagine what it is by the fact that a novel was published on it. And The Kissing Booth was so immensely popular that it won this is very prestigious, the Wattpad 2011 prize for most popular teen fiction.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you pick up as well that Beth Reekles, who wrote the... That's not her real name. Her real name is Beth Reeks. But wow. I can understand why you wouldn't want to go by that professionally.
Yeah.
Probably had a tough high school life, but...
Yeah. So she was offered
she showed them, I guess.
Yeah. She was offered a 3-book contract by Penguin Random House after the success of The Kissing Booth, which I think one of those was just The Kissing Booth, to publish it as a novel, and the other 2 were not The Kissing Booth 1 and 2. I don't want that to be a confused implication here. They were separate books, which we won't be talking about.
What a confusing implication.
Yeah, well, lucky I nipped it in the bud. So, just to backpedal immediately, Richard, in the interest...
You couldn't have ironed this out in the scripting stage.
In the interest of not dunking anymore on a young woman who got a Netflix deal for her debut novel, fucking good on her. What am I doing? Being like, this sucks, she must feel like an idiot. I'm sure she feels great. And I haven't read the novels. They sound like they're good, according to Wattpad, so, you never know. But what I can tell you is that all further comments will be concerning the film adaptations, which thankfully were directed by a man.
Yeah.
We can say whatever we want.
Yeah. I've never been happier that a film was directed by a man, because, as we're going to, there's weird stuff that it would be like, If a woman told me, no, I did it this way because it's female empowerment, I would have to be like, okay, fine. But because a guy did it, it's creepy and it's weird.
Yes, and it's frustrating because when we covered the Fear Street trilogy, Richard, I think one of our most categorically academic episodes of the show where we really just took down that series in every aspect. Halfway through recording, I found out, and I didn't exclaim this, it was an internal realization, that all three were directed by a woman. And I was like, oh God, we're never this thorough for films directed by men. And this is going to be, I think, a similar takedown of the series. But Beth Reekles, nothing against you.
Good for you, Beth Reekles.
Good for genuinely, but
yeah, fuck it.
What's his name? Fucking Vincent something.
Vince Marcello.
Vince Marcello, buddy, we're taking you down, cult popture style.
Yes.
With the second two films being filmed back to back and released the same year as the accompanying novel it was apparently adapting in 2020 and 2021 respectively, the Kissing Booth trilogy, already being a Netflix deal, smoothly sailed through the coronavirus pandemic, dropping online as scheduled while their theatrical contemporaries plunged into blockbuster bedlam riddled with delays.
Wow.
Meaning that
just off the cuff?
It was
That's
off
crazy.
the cuff. Meaning that one of the defining franchises of the COVID era was named for and was about the act of kissing multiple random people in quick succession, something the World Health Organization explicitly told us not to do. This is COVID spreading propaganda released during the height of the pandemic.
Wow.
Off the cuff. The series is set in Los Angeles, but was for some reason shot in South Africa.
I read that. It's so weird.
And stars child turned very much not child star Joey King as the main character Al. Yep.
Before you said star, it's like it stars child turned adult. Anybody.
Yeah, right.
Any actor that isn't a child.
Child star turned regular star is what I wrote, but I tried to go off the cuff and screwed it up. It also stars Jacob Elordi, Joel Courtney, Taylor Zacher Perez, and an unrecognizable Molly Ringwald. Molly Ringwald.
I think she's... you can tell... Yeah, I think she's recognizable.
I am shocked at her.
She's not in... she's not having a look disguised in any way.
No.
She has just aged
but
a person.
It's not like she's aged. I've seen, post peak of her career Molly Ringwald before.
Are you just saying you've seen not another teen movie?
Yes, and she didn't look like that in this.
It's been 20 years.
But I'm not even saying...
It's been as long since
me.
that. It's been longest between Not Another Teen Movie and this than it was between The Breakfast Club and Not Another Teen
You are
Movie.
misrepresenting what I am saying. I am not saying she's so old she's unrecognizable. I don't think she looks any older than she did in Not Another Teen Movie. She just looks completely different.
I think you need to rewatch Not Another Teen Movie. I think she looks great.
I'm not saying she doesn't look great. I'm saying she doesn't look like Molly Ringwald. She looks completely different.
Regular bloody... Everybody, look, we got a regular bloody Vince Marcello over here.
I'm not... I'm taking a drink of water. To calm down. The first film in the series, The Kissing Booth, 2018, directed by Vince Marcello. What do you reckon this has on Rotten Tomatoes?
100.
Very good guess. No. It has a 15% critic score, which is astonishingly low. But it does have a 55% audience score, which is also not that high for an audience score. Yeah. But also just remember this contrast. 15, 55. I think it'll make an interesting discussion as we go through the series.
So, do we want to just talk about what the first one's about? Get that out of the way?
Yes, that's the next line I've written down.
Okay, so I'll let you say it.
What's this movie about, Richard? Can you tell us?
So, it starts off with Al, played by Joey King. Mm-hmm. She is... We get a
child turned adult.
We get a précis of her life. And I tell you what, it's fucking hilarious. It's unintentionally fucking hilarious. So, it's done in this quick montage style. like,
My
I did
name's
this,
Al.
and then I did this, and then I did this.
Yeah.
But the thing is
about
that
her growing up. Yeah.
It's about her growing up and about her best friend Lee Flynn, and how she has she's totally crushing on his older brother Noah, and they've been lifelong friends, Lee and Al.
Their mothers were best friends, and so they were raised as twins.
Yeah. And so what happens is we get Al narrating, and it's like, so we learned to do Dance Dance Revolution, and then we'd stay at the beach house, and then Mom got sick. And then I got my first bra, and then we started high school together, and then I'd visit Mom in the hospital.
Yeah.
I would only cry when she was asleep.
Yeah.
And then I got another bra. This one fit this time. Then I buried Mom. And it's like, it's so, it feels like a Lonely Island sketch. It's that same sort of sense of humor. They've got songs, I think, that are like that.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's so funny. But the way that her acting in those scenes where she's at her mum's bedside is like, she is acting her butt off, and don't worry, we'll get
talk
to her
about
butt.
her
We
butt.
see plenty of that. It's not played for comedic effect. It's very I do not think anyone involved in this film thought that bit was funny. Like, I don't want to give them credit that maybe that they're supposed to make it a comedy.
No, absolutely not. No one's doing it
absolutely
on purpose.
No, I think it's supposed to be, the juxtaposition is supposed to be shocking, and it's supposed to make the emotion hit harder, but it just does not work. Every time it cut back to her dying mum, I cracked up.
Well, because as well, these are characters you didn't know existed 30 seconds ago. So, like, what am I, I'm supposed to be invested in this life, Yeah, I messaged you when I started watching this, and I said, 30 seconds into the kissing booth, and it is actually dog shit. Like, straight away, it is like, woof, this is worse than the worst Scooby-Doo. This is like the bottom of the rung kind of movie, and I will make all comparisons directly to Scooby-Doo because my mind is broken. Yeah.
So then we catch up to, it's the first day of junior year in high school, and Al has now blossomed into a voluptuous woman over the summer, the spring break, or whatever the main holiday over there is. And she goes, oh, well, I put on my fucking skirt from 2 years ago, and it's entirely butt. Like, it's this tiny mini skirt. She goes to school, this guy fucking grabs her butt, but fortunately she has this creepy dick who protects her.
She has this creepy dick. Been there, brother.
So Noah, Lee's older brother, her best friend's older brother, who she's had a crush on, punches this guy in the face, and it's like, it's cans off Al, no one can have her. And then she's like, I've never been kissed. No one is interested in me. And she finds out that it's because Noah, the coolest guy in school, has been threatening everyone, saying, don't fucking touch Al because I'm a protective, creepy dick and kind of a sexual predator. These are all lines in the film. Anyway, there's a school fundraiser happening, and this is where we get the titular kissing booth, because Al and Lee, that's their proposal. For everyone has to sort of propose a booth or some sort of attraction. It's like a carnival. They pitch a kissing booth, and Al says, oh, we're going to get Noah as part of the kissing booth, and all the girls in school have the hots for Noah. And
he sounds like he gives it up pretty easily as well. So the
thing is that
difficult.
That Noah is like a massive fucking ladies' man.
Yeah.
And then it's revealed that Al and Noah have always kind of liked each other. That's why he was so protective of her and why he wouldn't let anyone else date her. And so the whole film is this kind of like, will they, won't they, almost of Noah.
Well, it's more they're hiding their new. They kiss,
for most of the film, most of the film they're actually in a relationship, and I know what you're thinking. Oh, the stakes are going to be like, oh, this cute little high school couple. And it's, oh, she finally gets the kiss at the end. It's like, no, from the midway point, it is like, the narration is like, Noah and I fucked in science class. We fucked in the Hollywood sign. We fucked here. And we did all this fucking. And keep in mind, she's underage at this point.
The character is. The actress isn't.
The actress is barely of age.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
But
I'm so excited to talk about it, Richard.
So meanwhile, the whole thing that's going on is that Al and Lee, her best friend, Noah's younger brother, have this set of rules that they don't shut up about. And one of the rules is family is off limits. You can't fuck your best friend's family.
Yeah.
A rule that feels like it was only put in there for Noah.
Yeah,
like, who else? It's like, Lee's not going to try and fuck her baby brother. Like, and so the whole film was her hiding this from Lee. It's very important that, you know, the relationship between Noah and Lee is strained at the best of times. And so they have to hide this. It all comes out in the wash and blah, blah, blah. The movie ends.
Yes. So, it's mind-numbing stuff. I feel like the first film especially, but the whole series probably, has the visual style and sense of humor of like a Nickelodeon movie, but then like...
Well, not even Disney Channel original movie.
Yeah. But then like one of the characters will strip naked, or Al and Noah will secretly have sex in the science class. I wrote here, it's truly, Richard, it's truly American Pie for people who are afraid to say the F word.
Wow.
And while there are F words occasionally in this film, in the third film, someone literally says to another character, "You need to get me the F out of here." Which is just like, oh my God, just say the word, you cowards. Don't drag me down here any further.
Yeah, so it's really interesting watching this one because I mentioned there that I had this idea of what the film was and that it was this cute sort of... And so I went into this being like, oh, this beloved rom-com trilogy that's kind of cute for teenagers, whatever, like, at the worst, I'll have a fine time. My understanding was that the critical reception of these, or the audience reception of these, was that they're pretty cute. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
And I got midway through the first one, and I messaged my friend Kate, who I've mentioned a few times on this podcast, who generally, I would say, likes these kind of movies.
Our resident normie.
Yeah, and love Kate to bits, don't get me wrong.
Oh, it's got nothing to do with how we feel about the target demographic.
Yeah, but like she kind of becomes my audience surrogate for knowing what the general public thinks of especially like Netflix films, I think, is a big thing. And I messaged her and I was like, "You've seen Kissing Booth, right?" And she was like, "Yeah, it's fine, why?" And then I was like, "I'm watching it now and it is fucking garbage." And she was like, "Yeah, and the first one's probably the best one."
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And that sucks, but I agree with that. Like when you start at rock bottom, when you start at 1 star, the only place you have to go is half a star. And I wish I could rate something less than half a star. I wish Letterboxd would let me do quarter of a star. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I was shocked to find out that even by Netflix rom-com for teens standards, this is bad.
I reckon, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, I reckon that series is probably fun. Like,
that's the thing. So I think I knew there was another one I couldn't think of, but yeah, To All the Boys I've Loved Before is... I remember being really, really, really frustrated with one character, but you've seen them. I've seen the first one.
Right.
There's a whole thing, I think, that her little sister does something like borderline sociopathic, and it's like, apologize to your sister for being mad about it, and it's like, no.
Right. And well, you'd hate the Kissing Booth as well then, I guess, because this whole series is basically, wait, I can explain the movie, where if you just fucking sat there and listened, there would be no conflict.
Well, it's also just movie. It's Noah is a predator.
Yeah.
He's a fucking gross predator.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be... I do not sympathize or empathize with any character in this franchise.
No, it is the worst cast of characters I think I've seen in any franchise we've covered.
Yeah,
like it just so
God, just give me a fucking Charlie Swan to latch onto.
Even her dad, even Al's dad, the guy they casted. I was watching. I was like, this feels like the character actor you cast as like an NCIS villain, like not a lovable widower. Yeah,
I mean. Molly Ringwald is that character that we would normally latch onto. But she's barely in it. In each film, she has one sort of like nice monologue about like how much, Al can do what she wants and stuff. And it's very clear like, oh, that's why you've cast Molly Ringwald for this. But yeah, man. This film was so bad. And
Yeah.
I was expecting to not like it. I wasn't expecting to hate it.
Yeah, neither. Same.
I was hoping I would find at least something that worked in it.
Yeah, yeah. I've written a line from the opening monologue that we discussed earlier as sort of like what I think encapsulates the problem with the writing in the series. And this is, just to be clear, one of the first lines of writing in the series. So, like,
Yeah.
you start off and you're like, okay, that's the quality. So she's narrating, as we said, it sounds like a Lonely Island sketch. And then she says, I don't remember a lot from before high school, but for as long as I can remember, Lee and I have absolutely loved to dance. So let's like, you're doing a third, fourth pass on the script, right? And somehow you leave in the words, I don't remember, then 7 words later, I can remember. Like, I don't remember a lot from before high school, but for as long as I can remember. Just delete the first fucking line. What are you doing? It's so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah, or it should, or like if you want to say it like that, it would be like, I don't remember a lot from before high school, but what I can remember.
Yeah, but it's not. But it's like it doesn't know.
I'm doing script doctoring.
Yeah, yeah.
I know it wasn't like that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to pitch a second pass at the line.
I know. Richard, The Kissing Booth is our second franchise in a row after Scooby-Doo, which features a young woman we're explicitly told as a teenager, only for the filmmakers themselves to repeatedly, deliberately depict her as sexy. And not just like, get over it, you 30-year-old men, women are allowed to exist. Of course, that's not, I'm saying like male gazy shots of her like removing her clothes while she's drunk at a pool party.
Yeah, Jesus, that's right.
Like, it's...
And the miniskirt shots at the start.
Yeah. So Joey King was 19 in 2018. This probably was filmed... Oh, it's probably filmed in 2018, actually. It probably didn't take a year to get this thing made.
Yeah. Well, with the special effects, yeah.
So it's not a case of anything being illegal. And if you haven't been able to tell listening to this, I get very worried talking about this sort of stuff these days. I don't want people to, like, discover...
Well, these days, yeah, because you can't say anything these days.
Yeah, exactly. No. I don't want people to discover this podcast through this episode and think it's a podcast with two... like 30-year-old fuddy-duddy men don't like it when young actresses start embracing their sexuality. We love this. This is fine if it's through.
Now I'm
overcorrecting. Yeah, it's fine. I don't care. No, but you know what I mean.
I think every actress should do that.
I'm just saying, like, that's not the position I'm approaching this from. I think within the right context, you can tell the story virtually the same with the same like pieces and it not be problematic.
Well, it's just that a woman would shoot this film differently.
Agreed. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Given the same script, she would probably shoot, like, not just sexualize the underage character so much.
Exactly.
And there are ways you can be like, oh, she's developed over the break and people are noticing that, without having to put us in the mind of the people noticing it. Like,
it's quintessential male gaze.
Yeah, with her as our audience surrogate, we should be feeling more, oh, all these guys are being creepy and looking at me. We shouldn't be shown, check it out, this is what all the guys are looking at.
Yeah. And it's weird to have this in a movie where I imagine the demographic is probably exclusively 18 to 25-year-old women. I don't think they're shooting for anything outside of that demographic. And yet Vince Marcello's direction is one of the worst things about the franchise in this regard. Yeah. And Joey King gets the whole shebang of like sexualized scenarios and tropes here. She has multiple scenes in her underwear or a bikini. She performs some pretty intimate, like, near sex scenes at some points, including one where she loses her virginity, which is just that extra kind of like cream of creepiness when it's like this, you know, older male director
did it, dude,
being like, yes, now the scene where the 17-year-old has sex with the 18-year-old. Like, it's just a bit like, come on. And as you mentioned, she's forced to wear a very short skirt to school, in which we get multiple upskirt shots, after which some guy whose name, the character's name is Tuppen, which is such a specific name to give a background character with no further like influence in the series. But Tuppen grabs her ass, and then he gets beaten up by Noah, etc., etc. And then 2 scenes later, Tuppen asks her out, and she accepts.
Yeah.
She goes on it, and she literally She literally gets sexually assaulted and then immediately goes out with this guy. And in a film which could so easily be like passively feminist by virtue of having a female main character,
female lead, yeah.
like this has got to be one of the most blindly sexist and anti-feminist plot points I've ever seen. I hope it's not in the novel, because I said before I don't want to attack Beth Reeks or whatever her fucking name was. like, you know, like, this is disgusting. Why is this? You can't show a sexual assault and then they go out with the character. What the hell?
Then it's revealed that he hadn't been asking her out because Noah had been threatening everyone.
But you gotta be a pretty fucked up teenager to grab someone's ass anyway. Like, that's already
in this day and age.
Well, no, but even before like woke times,
women were people.
Yeah, fuck. I feel like that would still be something that like everyone I know would be like, holy shit, like that's crazy.
Yeah, but you're friends with a bunch of liberal cucks.
Well, good, thank God. Yeah. I was either friends with liberal cucks or Christians when I was a teenager, and neither of them were doing the grey area in the middle where characters like Tuppen exist. So I read some reviews. I scrolled to the reception tab on the Wikipedia page to see what other people said. I got one interesting thing here. Arnie Bundle from NBC News criticised the film's problematic stereotyping of masculinity and relationships and lack of original ideas, writing, "It feels like it was written by someone who simply digested everything she was told romance was supposed to be by the patriarchy and vomited it back at us. Nearly every cliche in the film feels cribbed from another movie, like a song made completely of samples from better-known hits." And I don't have as much issue with the clichéness of it, but I do like that she's like, this is what someone who is maybe a bit too young to like tell have a story published is going to tell a story about. I said I wouldn't criticize.
For the record, Vince Marcello also wrote this film.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. One thing I do have. One piece of praise for the entire franchise.
Is it the porn joke? Because I thought that was pretty funny.
What's the porn joke?
Where she's having sex with Noah, and then Lee knocks on her door, and he's like, "What's going on there?" I could hear like moaning, and she's like, "I was watching porn." I felt like that was like,
and he's like, "Can I watch with you?"
Yeah, which is kind of weird, but that hurt. Joey King's kind of good in this, and like I think that
I will say I like Joey King as an actress.
Yeah, and I think
she's pretty decent in the franchise.
Yeah, I do too, and I think that joke was like, wow, a vision of like the way more entertaining version this movie could have been. That's like sex positive in a cool way, not in a creepy way, you know.
So another thing that I was like going into this, and this is still leading on to my point about my one positive, that going into this franchise. You see three characters on the poster, you know it's a rom-com, and you're like, oh, here comes the fucking love triangle. You're introduced to, here's my best friend, we've always been platonic, and here's his older brother who I want to fuck. And then, and I was expecting at some point, no, my brother doesn't care about you the way I do, blah, blah, blah. In the entire series, they never tease anything more than a platonic relationship between Lee and Al, and I actually thought that was really breaking the formula.
I agree with you, but what I do think is that there is an unconscious work, like stuff in the writing and the presentation of the characters, which I think undermines the one good thing that you have to say about the movie, right? So the story engine in all three films, as we talked about before, is this best friend rules that Alan Lee made when they were like 6 years old.
And so when we talk about this, it's like they'll be walking along, they'll be like, remember 16?
And it'll come up.
Like, oh yeah, but you've forgotten about 8, and they come on screen. It's this weird like fucking Zombieland thing that just will not die in the franchise.
Yeah, right. So they came up with these when they were like 6 and felt for some reason that they still applied as they entered adulthood. These rules,
like when Lee finds out about Noah and is obviously heartbroken because she broke rule whatever number, she is down and out about it for a few days, and then remembers, there's one rule that says no matter how bad your friend fucks up, you have to forgive them if they buy you ice cream. So she shows up to his locker with some ice cream and he throws it in the trash.
Rule number 7, I believe, is the ice cream rule. So It reminded me of like when people be like, "Well, the founding fathers wouldn't have stood for this." It's
They wanted us to have the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
That's why, like, you can't change the Constitution.
Yeah.
Especially not an amendment, which is a change to the Constitution.
Yeah. So that's what the idea of keeping rules you made up when you were a child feels like. We know what Rule 35 is, but we're not told all
we're not shown
35
every
rules.
yeah.
So I can read them to you, and maybe we can riff on them.
How many are written down?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about maybe 15.
Okay.
So here we go. Rule number 1, only your best friend gets to know your birthday wish. These are all used, by the way, for plot contrivances, and they come up seconds before they're used. The ice cream thing is mentioned seconds before she gives him an ice cream. He throws it away. It's never mentioned again.
I actually think it's mentioned after she gives him an ice cream.
All right.
That it's like she shows up with ice cream and says, because of rule, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the birthday wish thing, yeah, whatever. Why is that rule 1? That's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
That's the first one you came up with and you thought, let's write a bunch of rules because this one was so good.
Rule number 2, never share our secrets with anyone else. I don't remember where this comes
but that's
up,
just, fair enough.
Rule 3, always help clean up your bestie's messes.
That's a lot to put on your bestie.
Depends on the mess. Rule number 5, always do the Thanksgiving wishing bone with your bestie.
Okay, that comes up once a year.
Feels very related to rule number 1 about the birthday wish. Rule number 6, if you can't tell your best friend about something you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it. I think this depends on the moral fortitude of your best friend, and not... Your best friend is not like the bastion of
okay. In the film or the book's defense, that's more like
don't keep anything.
If you have to be hiding it from them, If it's not that like, oh well, I don't think AJ would watch this pornography.
Yeah, cool, right.
Like because he's too morally upstanding. It's more like, oh, if I'm hiding this from AJ, should I be doing it? If I'm Yeah, agreed. Rule number 7, no matter how mad you are at your best friend, you have to forgive them if they give you ice cream. Not to dwell on this one too much. Written by, like, what if your best friend murdered your fucking mum? They bring ice cream? Sorry, I'm tearing up the rule book. Rule number 8, best friends must tell each other if there's something stuck in their teeth or on their face. Very cute. Very fun. Yeah, that one's fine. I have no qualms with that one.
Rule number 9, relatives of your best friend are off limits. We've discussed that already, and we will keep discussing it. Rule number 10, if one friend is sick or moody, the other one is responsible for bringing supplies to make them feel better. I don't remember this coming up in the series at any point.
Who gives a shit?
Rule 16, when your bestie needs you there, you need to be there for your bestie.
Okay, that's just being a best friend.
Rule number 18, always be happy for your bestie's successes. This is used to manipulate and gaslight Al a few times throughout the series. Rule number 19, always go to the same school as your bestie. Let's talk about that one in a couple movies' time. Which, again... some of these rules, like, these were written by 6-year-olds, like these very complex adult ideas. Rule number 20, terrible decisions are not to be discussed. This feels like it goes in direct conflict with cleans up
the entire franchise.
If rule number 21, if you see something awesome, show your best friend. Well, I guess we do that with TikTok, so I guess that one applies.
Okay, yeah, we do that. Are we trying to go through and see how many apply to us?
No, because I think this is a flawed list, and we have a perfect friendship. And finally, skipping from 21 to Rule 35, so there's quite a few I'm not privy to. Rule 35 is always call your bestie every time you miss them, which we do as well, so we can count them.
Well, we send each other TikToks.
Yeah. So the first film, as we've discussed, gets a lot of mileage out of Rule 9, relatives of your best friends are off limits, which lands Al in hot water with Lee when she starts dating Noah, who's Lee's older brother, if you're not keeping up. Listeners, if you haven't seen the film, these are the chess pieces on the board. Lee and Noah, their relationship, like, they obviously fucking hate each other. I don't think they're really shown in the entire trilogy, like, enjoying each other's company one-on-one. There's always this tension.
This is one of those things that I can't remember specifically, so I don't want to just say this is the truth. But as far as I can remember, they share one scene together.
And it's about
that's
painting
like just
over...
the two of them.
painting over the
No,
the,
yeah,
ba-
so
the
there's
beach
maybe
house?
there's a couple then, but I was thinking of when they say goodbye at the end.
Oh,
But
yes.
there's like the entire plot of the first film. If you were to do the log line is like a girl dates her best friend's brother, which, you know, puts, and so brother is one of the 10 words used in that log line. I didn't actually count them, but it's a very important word. The fact that they are brothers does not come up again in the next two films.
Yeah, right.
Barely.
Yeah, right.
It's implied, but it's never relevant again that they are brothers.
Yeah. I'm confused as to why Rule 9 is even on the list, right? Because...
Well, yeah, surely it's due to her crush on...
But he doesn't know about that, apparently. Or he must have. So I think almost every character...
One of them must have had a hot cousin?
Yeah, right. This must have come up earlier. Almost every character in the Kissing Booth trilogy, I reckon, is an absolute abusive control freak. And none more so than the Flynn brothers, collectively. Lee and Noah.
Absolutely.
But one thing this film avoids is confronting why Lee cares so much about who Al dates. And I think the reason here is because Lee is absolutely in love with Al. And I think this maybe was unintended, but I think that I've been the guy, and, you know, when I was younger, I've been the guy that was upset when his female quote-unquote best friend started dating someone. And while
dating your older brother.
Well, no, that specifically didn't happen. But I couldn't tell you at the time why this would have upset me, but looking back, it's 100% because I was secretly pining for her.
Yeah, well, okay, so I think that they have one of those classic male-female platonic friendships that are like, you are like a brother to me, and it's like, yeah, I would never think of dating her unless she showed the slightest interest in me.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And I think that specifically, yeah, like you said, I think Lee does not think very highly of his brother Noah, and there's a lot said about Noah's many sexual conquests. And I think that you don't want your best friend, this female that you are super overprotective of, dating the biggest douchebag in school who just wants to get his dick wet. He just happens to be his brother.
Maybe, but I just feel like, in my experience,
I don't want you to take away from me that they have a platonic friend. But also, like, it absolutely, like, male and female friendships that are that close are always going to have some sort of element of, to an outside viewer, I'll say, an element of, oh, you know, are you guys really friends, or are you just, you know?
I just think I've never been jealous of a female friend who I haven't had a crush on when they started dating someone.
Yeah, it's
only been when I've even if I've just had like a certain amount of affection for them that it's made me pissed off. Like, I've, you know, and thankfully this doesn't happen very often in my adult times, but when I was younger, it would come up quite a bit. When I had crushes on every woman I met.
Yeah, I think I have been the sort of weird protective friend where it's like, but I guess that probably was still the, like, well, if she'd been keen.
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
totally. I wonder if this is an autobiographical element, and I wonder if Beth Reekles had someone like Lee in her life, but because he never confessed his feelings, and she was 16, she wrote them into this novel
she didn't know any
thinking,
better.
she like, she's like, this is the behavior of male best friends, and it's like, Beth, no, this is the behavior when a guy is like wanting to control you because he's in love with you, or because he has this weird complex about you. And I like, it's like this. You remember when we covered God's Not Dead, and how the fact that God,
he was surely alive.
yeah, how the fact that God never like actually shows up in the story, and like the character ends the movie still having cancer, and how like this is done because subconsciously the script writers don't actually believe in God because God has never done this in their life. It's one of these unconscious things that's accidentally written into a story, where it's like Beth Reekles would have experienced this potentially because the guy she based Lee on was absolutely in love with her. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah.
Richard, did you know that Jacob Elordi and Joel Courtney, Joel is actually 1 year older than Jacob?
I did know that,
Yeah. Joey King...
You know that Jacob Elordi and Joey King dated before the film?
It's the next line. It's the next
Well,
line in my script.
Looks like I fucking beat you to it, cunt.
We often go to IMDb for content on this show, and look
I'm
for,
so sick of talking about this first film.
Well, I've got some dumb.
Get it over and done with.
Okay, this is IMDb trivia from the IMDb page that's really dumb. In the scene when Noah Flynn is carrying Al home on a motorcycle, it begins to rain hard. Noah stops and the two escape the rainstorm and retreat to a glassed gazebo. A scene from The Sound of Music also occurs where the couple escaped in the rain and run into a glass gazebo that looks identical to the one in this movie. In The Sound of Music, they break out with the song I Am 16... going on 17 during the gazebo scene. Molly Ringwald, who was in the kissing booth, acted in 16 Candles.
Wow. It's all connected. It's all so clever.
The other pieces of dumb IMDb trivia that I copied down were the following 4 pieces of trivia. Jack Fawkins' debut, Lincoln Pearson's debut, Jesse Rowan Goldberg's debut, and Juliet Blatcher debut. I'm sure that they wrote these pieces of, or their agents did or something, wrote these pieces of trivia. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about to do with the Kissing Booth one?
Nah.
Well, Richard, then there's only one more question I have to ask to Jude that's related to the Kissing Booth part 1, and that is franchise. Why was this a franchise? Why would they have made more movies of this?
So,
what do you think?
I believe Netflix has claimed that this is one of their best, most viewed films.
Something they do quite a lot.
Yeah, Netflix is like, I remember when Christmas Chronicles came out and they were like, yeah, this equates to like a $600 million opening weekend. And it's like, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Yep. So it was dubbed a commercial success by Netflix. A lot of subscribers viewed it, apparently, which is what directly led to a green-lighted trilogy, despite the fact critics deemed its storyline and themes to be cliched.
Like, part of me and I'm doing something that I've always said I found very funny when people do this, but like, do you think Netflix intentionally makes things this bad so that people talk about it and they become memes, and it's like,
I don't know if they intentionally make it this bad, but they certainly don't care if it is this bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all good publicity, right? Like, but I think, you make, I guess Netflix is so based on very specific stats. Like when Auntie Donna released their Big Ol' House of Fun on Netflix, I heard them on a podcast and they were talking about, if you're a fan of ours, if you want to support the show, what you have to do is watch the entire show as soon as it comes out. They say, we know that you might want to be like, oh, I'll save it for a rainy day, or I'll space it out because I don't want it to be over too soon. So the only metric Netflix looks at is how many people finish the show that started it and how quickly do they do it. They don't look at anything else.
Right. Well,
and so it's like, because of the Netflix model, they want these talking points.
This makes sense, because when the second film released, it was said to be upon the sequel's release, the first film was then the third most viewed Netflix film that weekend. Netflix says that 1 in 3 viewers of the film have rewatched it, and that is 30% higher than the average movie rewatch rate, which is a low amount to be 30% higher on anything. They deemed it a substantial success for the service, and Ted Sarandos himself called it one of the most watched movies in the country and maybe in the world.
So the Kissing Booth 2
came out
in 2020.
Came out in 2020, directed by Vince Marcello. So the Rotten Tomatoes scores, to remind you, for the first film was 15% critic, 55% audience. What do you reckon this has?
I'm going to guess it went up slightly, the critic score.
Yes, it went up to 27% on Rotten Tomatoes critic score, but a 38% audience score. So the audience and critics are going the opposite way on this one.
I think that's the classic case of less critics reviewing it, but the audience... This film is worse.
Yeah.
And the audience score would reflect that, but less people are reviewing it.
Good point.
So this one is about...
2 hours long.
Yeah, fucking hell. God. So this film... is Noah Flynn has now gone to Harvard.
We didn't mention this. He goes to Harvard at the end of the first movie in what's an incredibly down-buzz ending for a happy, peppy teen romance. They essentially go, maybe we'll break up. And then it ends. And she's like, and it all happened because of a kissing.
Yeah. So he's away at college. It's senior year. Feels like she's bloody cock of the walk because she got fucked by Noah Flynn in the science class on camera as well.
Well, she got the fight. I don't know if anyone's seen the video. There was a whole storyline about her.
Oh yeah, I mean they watch and then destroy the video on the third one.
Yeah,
but
Richard, it's that annoyed me so much because if I got banged in the science class and it was caught on video, that would bar none be the sexiest thing to ever happen to me. And it's like this is just like one of their many things that happened in their lives.
Yeah. So Noah's being weird. Their relationship is strained because of a lack of communication. He had long distance, but now it's time for a new charity fair. They bring back the kissing booth. This time, there's no Noah Flynn, so how are they going to get people to fucking mac on each other? So what they do is there's a new Noah Flynn, and he is a fucking snack and a half. There's a big extended scene, which is just Joey King riffing on the word snack. And it goes on for so long. That's why the film is 2 hours long.
She sees footage of him working out. Someone shows her footage of him working out, and she immediately launches into like an impromptu tight five about his abs while accidentally broadcasting this over the loudspeaker to the entire school. And none of it is funny. I didn't think it was very funny.
Slightest. So, eventually she beats him at their Dance Mania, it's called, machine, and he agrees to do the kissing booth, but because he's such a fucking snack, and Al, now hornier than ever because she can't get fucked in the biology room on the rig, she... there's becomes this sexual tension between her and Marco, but she goes to visit Noah and they're like, what's been going on? And she's like, oh my God, Noah, you've been cheating on me because you at Harvard, there's this beautiful woman named Chloe. I found her earring under your bed. I see the flirty texts you've been sending each other, and I know what a frickin' slut you used to be, so I'm gonna be all upset about that. So she goes back, and then meanwhile as well, she is needing to raise enough money to go study at Harvard because it's freaking Harvard.
She has to choose between Harvard or Berkeley, where Lee is going. And need I remind you, Richard, of rule number 19, always go to the same school as your bestie.
So... The turns out there's in classic sitcom fashion, there is a Dance Mania competition where the cash prize is the exact amount she needs.
It's so much money as well for a dance
$50,000 US dollars.
Life changing, as if a dance competition is going to be that. It's so fun. It was so funny to see that trope emerge.
Yeah. So her and Marco end up winning the dance competition, and she is so smitten with him that in the final moments of their dance, she fucking plants one on him. She gives him a big old smooch. And then turns out Jacob Elordi, Nate Jacobs himself from Euphoria, is sitting in the audience. He sees this. He bloody storms out. He's Nate Jacobs in Euphoria as well.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And he storms out. And then she's like, well, hey, you frickin' dingus, I thought you cheated on me because you used to be such a slut.
And
he's
Richard,
like,
can I just pause you? The movie has 40 minutes
40 minutes to go!
Yeah.
And so, it turns out he never bloody cheated on her, but he witnessed her kissing this guy. And then it turns out Chloe had crashed at Noah's place and they didn't sleep together. That's why her earring was there.
He wasn't even
she
there.
Didn't tell him this. And Yeah, then they go to the kissing booth and they frickin' make out, and it's a whole
they
thing.
don't.
It all happened
That's not
because of
what
a kissing
happens.
booth.
That's not what she goes to the kissing booth and
tells
tells Marco, "No, I won't kiss you because I'm in love with Noah." And then
Noah.
they go to the gazebo where they decide to get back together.
Yes.
This is the
No,
new
and then so Al goes to the airport
Yeah.
to be like, oh, I'm going to chase after him before he
Yeah.
flies back to Boston. She
Oh
gets
my
there.
God.
Chloe's there, not Noah, and she messages Noah.
Skip the
And
airport
she's like,
scene.
where are you? And he says, I'm at the kissing booth. Where are you? And they go, oh, let's meet at our spot.
Skip one of them. Skip one of them, please. Just do one place to another place, not 3 places. I'm going crazy. I just smacked my tooth on my pop filter.
Also, worth pointing out this whole time as well, the subplot which has been beefing this up to 131 minutes runtime is that this started at the end of the last film, actually, is that Lee actually enters a relationship with a very lovely girl named Rachel, who he fucking macked on at the kissing booth. And now they're in a relationship together. But Rachel is obviously jealous of how close Lee and Al are, and she says, you have to choose between me or Al, and he says, no worries, babe, I'll give Al the boot, don't you fucking worry about that. He doesn't even talk to Al about it at all. Rachel finds this out, confronts Al, there's a whole thing, the movie at about the, 100-minute mark where there's still half an hour to go, she's lost everything, no one will talk to her, and then things just kind of go right for her.
Yeah. This is the new moon of the franchise. I thought there's a lot of written post new moon as well, and this
is such a Twilight knockoff.
Yeah,
it's obnoxious. Like the creepy stalker protector nature of Noah Flynn is fucking
Edward Cullen.
What's Edward Cullen?
Yeah.
It's the most. Like, from what I understand, Jacob Elordi maybe isn't the worst person in the world or the worst actor in the world, but fuck, he's so bad in this. He's trying so hard to, like, emulate that sort of Edward Cullen-esque thing. And we know Robert Pattinson's a fantastic actor, and he hated playing that character because of all the stuff he had to do, but it's like, God, just have some charisma. Like, okay, you've got a perfectly chiseled jaw and abs, but we need to be shown some reason.
He's got a pretty noticeable, like, birthmark on his torso in all his shirtless scenes.
I wasn't looking at the birthmark.
There's also sort of a trademark opening monologue. All 3 films open with the same Lonely Island style monologue, where Al mentions that her and Lee started a podcast. And when this happened, Richard, I was terrified that it was going to play a significant role in the plot, and I'd have to watch, like, the thing I love most in the world be represented in this dog shit movie. But luckily, the writing in this movie is also so unbelievably dog shit that it never really comes up again, except in conversation.
Their podcast is what's their podcast called? Do you remember?
No.
It's called like Gamers Unite or something like that, or like it's called like game. It's about gaming. It's called Game Over or something like that.
So stupid. It is an infuriating screenplay, Richard. One in which multiple story beats play out, the drama is solved, only for it to repeat again. Like so, we the things both things you talked about, both storylines. You've got Al suspects Noah is cheating. He tells her he's not, so she's reassured. But then something else happens, so she thinks he's cheating again. Lee's girlfriend Rachel is mad at Lee for spending so much time at Al, so he tells her he'll do better, and she believes him, but then he doesn't, and she gets mad again. This all happens over and over. It's a 2-hour, 12-minute cycle of all of these things happening over and over again. I have worked with no Wikipedia page directors, which Vince Marcello is, and they're always so meticulous about this stuff. Like that's like their one like the way that they can be as good as the greats is to take this thing seriously. I have sat in boring ass writing meetings with directors before where they've discussed things like this is a repeated story beat. If there's one thing amateur filmmakers are good at, it's getting rid of repeated beats, and yet this film is repeated beat after repeated beat, and you could easily merge these storylines. The earring thing can happen at the same time as where she thinks where she finds that Chloe was wearing the earring on Instagram, they can be the same story beat. They don't need
But
to
they're
be
an hour apart.
They don't need to be, exactly. So you can merge stuff like that, and you can remove fluff. And I hate to say this, Richard, on a podcast which already makes me feel like people are going to get the wrong idea about what I believe. But hey, let's cut the gay love story that happens between two of the background characters. I am a passionate ally for the LGBT community, Richard, but I reckon we can get this thing to under 2 hours if we trim out the superfluous gay character storyline, which, while you were watching the film, you watched this in 2 parts. By the time you watched the second part, you were like, who are these 2 guys that kiss at the end?
I was like, one of the extras is gay.
Yeah, but it's this whole storyline.
Because I watched this film, in 2 1-hour chunks, essentially. And so when it culminates at the end of the film, I hadn't seen these guys for the last hour. And also, I will say, just on representation in these films, that you have this very sort of subtle blink and you'll miss it, apparently, gay love story. But there is so Chloe is a woman of color, but there is one person of color in the rest of the cast. There's this one extra who reoccurs, who is just his role is diminished to just being a reaction gif. There is some insane fucking reactions in this film. Shit happens, and the crowd is overacting their fucking butt off. And Joey King's reactions to things are weird as hell as well. But every single time you see a crowd react to something shocking, in the front and center is the one black actor they had on set, and he is giving it his all. Eyes bulging out of his head, mouth agape, and it's like, this guy is nothing but a reaction gift to these filmmakers.
Right, yeah. Speaking of, you mentioned Chloe in this as well. If you're wanting to still have representation and cut out the superfluous background character storylines, why not make Chloe gay? So that the reason she finds out that she hasn't been cheating is like, oh, Al, I'm not into Noah because I'm not into men.
I'm into you!
Oh my god! We've instantly written a better film. Richard, frankly, I wish that Noah was cheating.
Yeah, this is something I said to you, and I think you've probably just stolen from me. But
yeah, sorry, I'm not capable of the same pathway of thought that this movie forces you down.
Well, it's not as interesting, although I do like the dynamic that it includes. There's a moment in the third film where, so Noah never actually cheated on Al, but Al did kiss Marco. And then there's a moment in the third film where Noah's like, oh, Chloe's coming to this thing. And she's like, oh, cool. We like Chloe. And then she's like, yeah, I'm going to bring Marco, actually. And he's like, oh. And then she's like, well, double standard much. I was totally cool with Chloe. And he's like, yeah, but I didn't kiss Chloe. And it's supposed to be this oh, girl, you don't deserve to be treated like that. It's like, no, he's fucking right. He didn't cheat. You did.
Well, regardless, Richard, I reckon Marco is absolutely who Al should have gone with at the end of the kissing booth too.
So this is the other thing, is that I was really interested because I especially more so, I guess, in the third film, but I was like, oh, is this franchise actually just going to do a really interesting thing and be like, yeah, actually both of these characters should be with another person.
Which is true. That is what it should be.
They should. That Chloe and Noah have a much better dynamic than Al and Noah.
And this is a good comparison to Twilight, because in Twilight, I was always Team Edward from all the way through New Moon. I'm always Team Edward, but now I'm Team Marco. I think the case that it presents for Marco in this film is so far and above the case it presents for Noah that it's and then she ends up back with Noah, and I was like, oh god, it's so frustrating. He is such a toxic creep, and she.
Well, so I think that the part of the reason is that in the first film we are shown through montage, oh, I've always had a crush on Noah, and you're like, okay, that's why she likes Noah. With Marco in the second film, we're only introduced to him here, so we see them fall in love. We have to be shown why he's a good candidate for her, rather than just having
Yeah.
you tell us, oh, he's my perfect guy.
Yeah, it's one of these things where it's like the filmmakers are like, sorry, this is the story of Al and Noah, which it is. It's a story of Al and several people, really. But
Yeah.
like we can't just trade out the love story like that. But it's like, I was just filled with rage when she went with Noah over Marco, over drama-free Marco. And Joey King and Jacob Elordi had broken up in real life by this point. So they probably didn't like having a scene where they share a tearful, like, they're like, oh, let's get back together. Imagine acting that with your ex. It'd be so, like, weird. Marco is the best character in the franchise, I thought.
I didn't like Marco in the slightest, but
Really?
I probably agree with you.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of the stuff in the drama in the film comes to a head at this unfathomably horrific, uncomfortable Thanksgiving dinner where in front of everyone's parents, they're all just being like, well, you did this and you're mad at me for this. And for some reason, Noah has brought Chloe to the Thanksgiving dinner.
Insane thing to do.
While Al thinks that he's cheating on her with her. On her with her. And like, it's like, and the whole thing is, because I wanted you guys to be friends. And it's like, fuck off. This is so stupid. This is so stupid. And the last thing I have to complain about with the Kissing Booth Part 2 is Al gets accepted into Harvard. Is this not, like, even the way
and
the
Berkeley.
character... Well, so I can believe Berkeley, because that seems to be like the...
Because that's a piece of shit
Well,
school.
I don't know. The way it's presented in the movie is like everyone gets into Berkeley, and from what pop culture has taught me over the last 29 years is that Harvard. Yeah. But she gets is Harvard, like, I'm not even trying to be mean to this fictional character, but the way that Al is presented is not like an Ivy League student. She's not presented as excelling.
Particularly, like, she doesn't even know what she wants to study at these places.
Yeah.
Which we will get to.
Yeah, and there's this the movie is kind of framed by her trying to figure out how to write her, like,
oh my god, sorry, you continue.
So she's got to fill out this application where she has to write where do you see yourself in 5 years, and she writes this like kind of like fluffy thing that her Harvard I think it's the Berkeley person is like, I want to know who the real you is. You know it feels like, which I don't think they would say. I don't think they're saying this to the 5,000 students that apply every year to be like, you need to be more authentic. But then at the end she sort of, she finally cracks what she wants to do in 5 years, and it's pretty fluffy and pretty indistinguishable from the first thing she wrote. But...
Well, it's like, I want to be Noah's courage. I want to be Lee's whatever, and the person reading this is just going, who are these people?
Yeah, it's terribly
written. About? I actually took a photo of what her essay is.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to be in 5 years is a difficult question to answer, because as soon as I start to figure out one thing, something, or someone changes and makes me question everything. And if I'm not sure what I am right now, how could I possibly know what I want to be in 5 years? Life throws curves at you. You think it's moving one way and suddenly realize it's heading back in the opposite direction. So it's difficult
Harvard
to know
stopped
what you'll
reading
be
by now, honestly.
So it's difficult to know what you'll be in 5 years when that curve comes flying at you and you're not sure whether you should try and hit it, catch it, or get out of the way. And it's like, you've said, I don't know what I want to be in 5 years, like 3 times in 2 paragraphs.
It's terribly written.
Essay. It's like it was written by Vincent Marcello.
Or a 16-year-old.
With how many fucking plot beat it fucking repeats.
Anything else you want to talk about with The Kissing Booth 2? It ends with her getting accepted into both Berkeley and Harvard, meaning they're gonna draw out.
Telling her both, because Noah and Lee both want them to go to her go to their one, and she tells them both that she was waitlisted for both of them. They go, better luck next time. Not particularly surprised. You've never been particularly academic in any way.
Yeah.
So, and your essay was a piece of shit. So this. Isn't surprising.
It's all a way to drag Rule 19, always go to the same school as your bestie, into the third film.
Entire movie.
Yes, so The Kissing Booth 3 came out a year later, directed by one Vince Marcello. What do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes?
What was the last one?
27 critic, 38 audience.
Yeah, I'd say around the same critics.
Yeah, 25% critics. So I thought it was slightly worse. 18% audience. So they just kept going down. The audiences, the people that apparently matter, are not here for this. Yeah. What did you think of The Kissing Booth 3?
I thought it was dog shit.
Yeah.
So what's it about? AJ, they're selling the beach house.
Not the beach house, no!
The Flynns have gone out of their fucking mind,
Yeah.
and they're selling the beach house.
The thematically important beach house.
The beach house, you will remember it from my synopses of the last two films. The beach house is no more. Everything you think you know about the beach house,
gone.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Because they're selling it, and that is the emotional crux of this movie. So what they do, at this point, Al still can't decide which school she wants to go to. She's still keeping up this facade that she is, this facade, I was intentionally mispronouncing that, this facade that she got waitlisted for both while she tries to make her mind. She's dodging calls from the schools saying, just give me 5 more minutes, I don't know what I want to be in 5 years.
Dodging calls from the schools? You're out.
From Harvard.
You're not picking up, you're ghosting Harvard? You're out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this whole time, Marco and Chloe show up. I mentioned before, blah, 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 blah. But one of the sort of through lines of this film is that Lee and Al find this list of things they did that they wrote as kids. Another fucking list. The beach bucket list of stuff they wanted to do before they went to college. And they're like, let's make this the best summer ever and do everything on this list. So there's a fun little montage where they do a bunch of these things. One of them is make Noah into an ice cream sundae, because that's the kind of weird shit you write when you're a kid. One of them involves them having this extended live action Mario Kart sequence, which is like one of the most baffling fucking things in the entire franchise. I want to talk about
this. So they come out dressed, so they ask Noah to do it and he doesn't. So they come out and Al is dressed as Mario. I believe Rachel is dressed as Luigi, and Lee is dressed as Princess Peach. And then, surprise, surprise, Marco comes out and he's dressed as Wario. And I want to ask you, Richard, do you think Wario is ubiquitous enough of a character to put it in this, superficial like surface level reference? Yeah. Like, I reckon Wario takes it from being an appropriate whatever reference to, you need to have more of a knowledge of a working knowledge of Mario. Well, I mean, I think
this. That I think Elon Musk did a great thing by bringing
Wario
SNL to by bringing Wario to the forefront when he appeared on SNL, and I think that in a post Elon Musk world, I think this reference works. Although I'm not sure if it happened before or after that. Maybe that's why. Maybe Elon Musk saw Kissing Booth 3 and thought, I could do that.
I reckon he does live in South Africa, or he is South Africa. He probably doesn't live there.
Yeah.
But they filmed this in South Africa, so maybe he was just like...
Maybe they borrowed his Wario costume.
I bet he fucking loves the Kissing Booth 3. Dude.
Oh, he would. And yeah, anyway, so obviously she can't keep up. Al's dad is dating someone new. It's hidden for us for a long time. Turns out it's Linda.
Not Linda! And the beach house!
And yeah, so anyway, the whole thing is she's struggling to find the balance between her relationship with Noah and her friendship with Lee when they've got this list of things to do. The end of it is that, my fucking God, the end of this film. So... Oh, not even the end of this film. That's even more mine. But the end of the main sort of plot of this 113-minute film is that she decides she's not going to go to either of these schools.
Everyone breaks up, first of all.
Everyone breaks up. Rachel's like, you know what? I think we should break up. And Lee is devastated, and it's not earned at all.
Yeah.
But her and Noah decide to go their separate ways. She says she applies for University of Southern California to study game design. And so they say... In the meeting, in the interview for game design, they say, all right, well, what sort of game ideas do you have? And she's like, I didn't fucking think you'd ask me that, which is so stupid. Have a fucking idea. But then she's about to leave and she turns around and says, wait, actually, I do have one thematically relevant idea.
And let me
she
paint the scene
pitches a beach
for you.
house game. She pitches a beach house game. Or like
the room that she's pitching this is very reminiscent of the like student body council that was taking pitches for the fundraising fair in which the Kissing Booth was first conceived. And you know what? For a brief moment, Richard, this cynical old man watching these movies made for teenagers, for a brief moment, I was like, it's actually pretty clever. Because the Kissing Booth, nary a mention this whole time. For the Kissing Booth 3, they've never mentioned it, you know?
Yeah, and we have her in an identical setup to the 2 times that she has pitched a Kissing Booth. And so, yeah, she says, actually, I do have one. They've fucking dismissed her from the interview. They go, okay, well, you obviously didn't prepare for this thing, so get out of my fucking sight. And then she goes, I actually do have one idea. She sits down and she says, well, you know fantasy football, where you... And the guy says, we want to have fucking fantasy football works.
It's $9 billion industry for some reason. The stat that fantasy football is a $9 billion industry is left in this.
And then she says, well, and you know esports. What if we just combined those? And they're like, holy fuck, she's done it. She's done it. $9 billion industry plus a $2 billion industry. You have pitched us an $11 billion industry. Everyone else just pitched us platformers.
Yeah.
You have pitched us a money printing machine, which is, I'm presuming, I've just met you, but I presume this is incredibly relevant to everything that's been going on in the last couple of years of your life.
That's what I loved, Richard. It was a nice payoff to the fantasy football storyline, and that had been
and her love of esports.
And her love of esports.
It comes out of we're being facetious. This comes out of nowhere.
It is so
the
weird.
fact that she goes to study video game development is signposted enough. We're shown that she likes video games. She helps her brother. You know what?
We're not really showed her playing a lot of video games though. Just that she likes
unless
them.
you count the Dance Dance Revolution thing.
I guess so.
But it is shown that she helps her brother with Mario Kart. She's better at it than him. So I was like, okay, I guess. If you knew this was where it was ending, I would have lampshaded it earlier on. But this fucking esports idea, esport fantasy sport thing comes out of absolutely nowhere. There is not a single thread in the entire franchise that hints at this even slightly. It is insane. It is some of the most baffling fucking writing I've ever seen. Anyway, that scene ends.
I reckon it might be the worst piece of writing I've ever seen.
Genuinely.
I think it's just so and the fact that the idea just sounds like something someone
idea.
Well, it sounds like something someone would actually pitch. Like, it almost feels like Vince Marcello has this idea and is using the Kissing Booth 3 as a Trojan horse to get this, idea in the masses. It is so... It's like they sat down and they're like, all right, the clincher of this thing is Al needs to pitch a really good video game idea. And then they this was the best they could come up with. And at no point someone was like, why don't we use one of the many threads we've already set up? What if it's a visual novel based dating sim based off the last couple of years of her life? What if it's a Dance Dance Revolution clone like the one she's been shown playing? What if it's something to do with the beach house stuff that we've been spending this whole movie? Or, it should really be a Kissing Booth video game. And when the scene was starting, I was like, how would a Kissing Booth video game work?
Yeah, same, yeah.
I was like,
because that's obviously what she's about to pitch.
Because that's so obviously what you write there, Vince Marcello. How do you get this? This is another thing where I was saying how I've worked with small-time directors, and this is the kind of thing you jump on immediately when you're writing.
This is why you write this scene. This is why you have her apply for a college.
Yes.
Yeah. So, cut to 6 years later. It blew my mind when I saw that title.
Style.
Yeah. So she's now got a very short haircut because I believe Joey King had shaved her head for a film and wore a wig in these last 2 films.
The Act.
Yeah. Yeah. And she has a short haircut. She's hanging out with Lee and Rachel ended up back together and are getting married. Noah shows up. He barely fucking knew about their wedding, just further showing that their relationship is incredibly strained.
And also, why break Lee and Rachel up in the first place if the next thing that happens is 6 years later they're back together?
Yeah, so they go back to the charity fair, and what do you know? There's a kissing booth there. They're still keeping their idea alive. Noah is like a top lawyer after graduating Harvard Law, insanely, and Al is developing video games, and they say, you know what? Let's go for one last ride, and they ride off on their motorcycles together, laughing and having fun, and then we are put out of our misery, and there is nothing left of the franchise except for a bunch of bloopers and stuff that run through the credit.
Well, all three films have blooper reels in the credits, but they're more like deleted scenes. It's the only deleted scenes reel I've ever seen.
Well, so some of them are just like, oh, Joey King is burping or something like that, and then a bunch of them are like, I don't remember this bit from the movie, and they're not cracking up. It's just, this scene wasn't in the movie.
They're edited as well. Like, there's editing involved. Yeah, like this is what I hate about this whole franchise, and it's encapsulated in this epilogue, Richard. What I hate about this franchise is that it is a lie. It is not representing the truth. It depicts abusive, horrible men as like these hot heartthrobs who you should throw your life away and dissolve all your friendships to be with, right? And this scene is like, you know who most people don't care about 6 years after high school? Their abusive
Anyone from their high school.
Yeah, their abusive high school boyfriend who they haven't thought about in that time. 6 years, she's still down. She's not grown up at all. Like, 6 years later, she should be reflecting on her life and seeing that the Flynn brothers were a little bit psychopathic, if you really think about it. Like, you know, like, I look back at my life in high school, there are so many people I don't talk to anymore. There are so many people who I had, like, deep, deep connections with who I now can't even, like, I don't even know where they are. And it's the sad truth that, like, life gets better, quote unquote.
Life gets you down.
Like you become more mature, and I think your relationships become so complex they make your high school relationships look juvenile in comparison.
Yeah, because they are juvenile.
They are.
I will say as well though that like the people that you hold these grudges against have also grown up. Sure, but there's no reason to welcome them back into your life. Who gives a shit about the people you went to high school from?
Yeah.
AG, I do have an apology to make. I omitted something from this list, from my synopsis. AJ, Molly Ringwald is in a meeting where she stands to make millions of dollars by selling the beach house. Potentially billions, because they're going to bulldoze it and put up a bunch of new apartments. But as she is putting pen to paper, she has the realization that no, the beach house is too thematically significant that she could never sell it. She turns down becoming a multi-millionaire to save the beach house, which presumably none of these kids are going to use anymore because they're all moving out of state.
Yeah, they're all going to different schools. It's so true. Yeah, it's such a bad scene. God. So a lot of this film is, as we've said, is driven by always go to the same school as your bestie.
A lot of this film is a Mario Kart sequence as well. For some reason.
Yeah. And this rule's just another showcase.
This rules.
It's just another excuse to showcase how manipulative and horrible of a friend Lee is. Marco comes back in this film, and when he came back, I couldn't believe it, Richard. I screamed. I thought to myself, leave him in movie 2. Like, don't, like, this movie, it's literally like they ran out of story to tell for the third part, and then halfway through they were like, oh, let's just do Kissing Booth 2 again.
Kissing Booth 2 as the, like, Happily Ever After sequel, sure, that makes sense. That's where you go from the end of Kissing Booth 1. Kissing Booth 3 is like, why would you sell the beach house after everything it's done for us?
We talk about titles a lot on this podcast, Richard, and do you want to know what the books are called?
The Kissing Booth and the Kissing Booth Beach House.
No, very close. They're called The Kissing Booth 2 Going the Distance, and The Kissing Booth 3 One Last Time. Now, let's ignore, like, I feel uncomfortable when book sequels have numbers in the title. That feels like that's for movies, not for books.
Get your own titling scheme, books.
What do you think these would have made good titles for the movies themselves?
Yes.
And I wonder as well, like, are they handcuffed by needing to shoehorn a kissing booth into them, or could you go like the first one's the kissing booth, the second one's the dance competition,
the dicking booth,
and the third one is the beach house bucket list? You know, like each of them have these like things at the center of them, and then also a kissing booth because that's in the title. So we need to.
Yeah, I mean, I think. It should be the second Kissing Booth. Or the Kissing Booth senior year.
The Kissing Booth again. The Kissing Booth second base.
Yes.
And the joke is ruined by the Kissing Booth third base. Where it's like, yeah, I got it. You didn't need to. Now
And
it's
then
about
the kissing booth.
Sorry,
home
now it's
run.
about a blowjob? What?
Yeah. The kissing booth home run. That's my continue the franchise. The kissing booth anal.
That is what we're up to continue the franchise, where we put our own continuation to the franchise. And judging by the epilogue and the fact that the last book is subtitled One Last Time, and that the novels aren't the sprawling Diary of a Wimpy Kid saga that I for some reason assumed they were, we have no more movies on the horizon, thank God. What's your continue the franchise?
I want to see. I think that there isn't an inherent badness in doing a teen romance revolving around a kissing booth. And so I'm pitching the gay kissing booth.
Okay.
Let's make this a cute Love Simon rom-com about someone having their first kiss with a blindfolded person of the same gender and finding their sexuality in high school.
Okay. And just to clarify, it's called the gay kissing booth.
It's called the gay kissing
Okay.
booth.
All right. I was thinking like Greta Gerwig's not available because she wouldn't do something like this. But surely Greta Gerwig has inspired dozens upon dozens of wannabe Greta Gerwigs.
There is a cute movie in here that is a beautiful
needs to be directed by a woman.
That's perfectly innocent, and it's just this nice thing. I mean, I think the idea of a kissing booth is weird as hell. Like, it's such a bizarre
I don't think
thing.
my high school would have approved it for a high school based fundraiser either.
Yeah. Kissing booths, I thought, were like swirlies, that it's like these things that don't actually exist.
Right. And it's not going to live on in real life either, because like we're now at a time when like kissing is being like outlawed. That makes it sound like we live in some kind of dystopia. But because of COVID, it's like when these movies were at their height, any fans who went to high school who pitched this would have been shot down, because they would have been like, no, sorry, we have to wear masks.
Sorry, kissing is outlawed.
There was a hugs were outlawed at my high school, and then someone made a documentary about it called Free Hugs, and it was playing at like a little like film competition, and it got turned off by the vice principal.
Wow.
She turned it off mid-screening. It was so funny. My continue the franchise, Richard, I'm going to pitch to you a kissing booth video game. I'm going to steal a trick that Al missed and pitch how would a kissing booth video game work. And if it's like, let's say it's like a I don't know, like a online battle royale kind of game and stuff. Well,
okay.
Like, could it be? How would you? Maybe it's more like The Sims, and it's about matching up.
I was thinking that, you know, those like you see the ads on for those apps that are it's called episodes or shit, and it's
called a lot of things.
yeah, but it'll be like, you know, you see two people making out, and then it's like, OMG, join them.
Yeah,
I downloaded one of those, and I got so attached to the storyline of my character,
wow.
and I gave her a bad ending, and I felt so upset, and I hadn't checkpointed to make the like. To go back and change the ending to be good, and I was so pissed off with myself, I deleted the app. But also the thing that
when did you play this game?
This was like maybe 3 years ago, and so the thing that these apps do is like you getting dressed for your hot date kind of thing, and it's like, oh my god, this guy is only into sporty girls, and I have to impress him. And then your clothing options are watch an ad to get sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, or pay $8 and you can get this super sexy sporty outfit. And it's like everything where there's an obvious good, like there's an all right option, a bad option, and then the obvious good option. The obvious good option is a microtransaction.
Well, that's essentially what I would do with a kissing booth video game. Well, that brings us to the end, Richard, of the Kissing Booth trilogy. Thank God we can kiss it goodbye.
Wow.
But
both of us can.
Now
both of us can kiss it goodbye.
Now we've just got to rank that franchise over at letterboxd.com/cultpopture, where we've ranked all the franchises we've ever watched. And we've also got like comprehensive lists of every film we've ever watched, but that has gone not updated since the 47 Scooby-Doo movies. And I don't know if I could be bothered being the one to do that. But
I feel like it wouldn't take as long because you just go through your ranked list, sort it by date, and then just add. Well, I didn't finish my ranked list, so.
Well, it's not about ranking them; it's about adding the.
No, but I don't have a comprehensive list at my disposal, which has every film. In it.
So we're going to rank this franchise. I've immediately gone down to the bottom of the list. I think this is probably, to me, this is easily bottom 10 franchises.
Oh,
we've ever
easily,
watched.
yeah.
And this is our 170th franchise.
Yeah.
So, at 160...
like this, to me, this is nowhere near as bad as Dungeons and Dragons or anything like that.
So I was thinking about this, especially, I think it's comparable to God's Not Dead in a sense, but God's Not Dead has this hatred flowing through it that I find really, offensive. So I'm thinking maybe above... I reckon it's better than Land Before Time. It's probably better than Medea, actually. I reckon between Medea and Sex and the City.
Yeah.
So it's Sex and the City
has that one good scene.
And it's just, there's at least, adult writing in it that you can be I can see what's happening here. So we're saying...
that thing from earlier has paid off.
Yeah. So we're saying that The Kissing Booth is worse than Sex and the City 1 and 2, but not as bad as the Medea series, which places it as the 165th best franchise we've ever watched out of 170. All right, and with that, Richard, we get to do something now that we've not done in a while, which is a little game called Franchise Roulette, where we've got a big list of franchises, and we get to draw a random number which will tell us the next franchise we're doing. We haven't done this in months, Richard.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually find out when the last time we would have done it would have been. It would have been when we rolled Knocked Up, I think. Which was, we would have done at the end of the Chucky episode on Halloween.
There we go.
We haven't done it since.
And that was the fun franchise list as well, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, because it was for Nice November.
And it's 2 films.
So we haven't turned to this since...
The Alpha
list.
Yes,
was Psycho? No, Psycho had to be a horror one. Anchorman was not random. Bad Boys was the last franchise we randomly selected, I think.
Well, from the main list.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, before we roll that, Richard, I would just like to say that if people have enjoyed this podcast, then please consider supporting us and being part of the community. You can jump in the Discord, which there'll be links to in the show notes. Tell us what you think of The Kissing Booth. And if you want to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, you can do that at ColdPopture. And if you want to donate, you can throw in some money over at patreon.com/ColdPopture. But Richard, give us a number. Who's going to make the other guess?
I've got the list open, so I can do it.
Sweet. Give us
I just had to take an American tail off it, and tail was spelt T-A-L-E. All right, so here we go.
70.
What was that?
70.
Who's this guy? Who's
Where's the lady gone? She's sick
Where's
today.
the lady? Oh my gosh.
I don't like this guy.
The appearance?
Who the fuck are you?
That's crazy. I don't remember changing this, and it looks like you can't change it.
Damn. This is...
Damn, okay, I guess we just get this guy now.
Fuck.
So, franchise 70 is... Okay, this is a good one to... I think a good one to cross off. I think
Get back
it's
into the
overdue.
groove of things.
I just double checking how many there are.
How many
now,
have we written there are?
We wrote 4, but I think there's 5 now.
Wow. When was the most recent one released?
2, 3, 4, 5. 2021, there is an untitled 6th one in development, apparently, despite the, I guess, finality of the last one.
Have we seen these?
I have made a joke on 2 separate occasions about the fact that I've seen 2 of these.
Okay, that doesn't help me.
I thought it might. It's a horror franchise.
Okay.
And the joke I've made is that I've seen the first one and the first one.
Is it The Purge?
It is The Purge. So
wow,
The
this is
Purge,
so interesting.
The Purge Anarchy, The Purge Election Year, The First Purge, and The Forever Purge. Out of this, I have seen The First Purge and The First Purge.
Nice, very good. This franchise, for international listeners, this franchise has virtually no presence in New Zealand. Like,
yeah.
I reckon I didn't even know these existed till like the third movie was out. And I don't know. I know, like, you know, what the first one's about. I don't know what the first one's about. Well, everyone, that is the Kissing Booth. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're ready to jump back into our regular scheduled programming for film franchise Fortnights. We'll be back in 2 weeks with The Purge. We'll be back in 1 week with the Oscars discussion, I believe.
Is that next week?
I think so. Well, that's when I think it's supposed to be. And if you stay listening after this music ends, you'll get the post-credit scene, so make sure you do that. But other than that, Richard, it's been awful. What a shit franchise this was. I hated it. I hated it every second of it. Literally irredeemable. The parts that we thought might redeem it ended up not happening in the film. So what does that say about it? So I hope everyone enjoyed it. And for those still listening to Scooby-Doo, good luck to you. Still making your way through it. Nothing stops this train. We are the kings of backlog on your podcast subscription feed. But yeah, see you around. Welcome along to the post-credit scene. This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get to talk to us about, or ask us, or get us to talk about something that you want us to talk about. What have we got today, Richard? Who's it from?
So today's one comes to us from Jake, who says, AJ, what was the happiest Richard has ever made you? And Richard, what was the angriest AJ has ever made you? It's not what it says. It says happiest, but
I was going to say,
what was the happiest we've made each other?
There's just so many to choose from. I'm struggling. Well, recently you reviewed the Kissing Booth 2 with the Letterboxd review. Scooby-Doo. You wrote Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And I thought that was profound. Like that was like when I said like we would have gotten away with it too in the podcast and the actual spoilers for the fuck. I hope people have finished Scooby-Doo. We're just gonna be spoiling the Scooby-Doo episode. But like I found that almost more moving than funny, while it was also funny. But
yeah, right. See, I think I was going to say, your message you sent me last night about how much you loved that.
So the happiest you've made me is something you've done, and the happiest I've made you is me saying that thing made me so happy.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else that springs to mind? It's certain jokes and stuff like that, and I would say for me, the things that make me really happy is when, you acknowledge something funny that I have done, or like something like that, and that because and this is like a genuine compliment, is that I love the way you articulate why things are funny.
Oh, thank you.
It's like it's always, and so there are times when there's been a joke I've liked or something like that, and I've shared it with you just because I want you to articulate why it's funny, or that's why I love like analyzing jokes with you, because there's so many, there's like Simpsons jokes or Family Guy jokes or anything like that I have such a new appreciation of, because of when I hear the joke, I think of your explanation, and it's this classic like, explaining why something's funny ruins it. But to me, we're hearing you explain why something is funny elevates it so much for me.
That's great. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I reckon explaining why something's funny ruins it, that feels like a boomer direction.
Yeah.
Like that feels like something a boomer would think about comedy. Like I think comedy it's the same with like film studies in high school. I always ended like loving the film way more than before.
That's the thing,
I studied it. Like
seeing how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
But like especially like Simpsons jokes as well, that because the way Simpsons jokes are like layered and they're so clever and everything, that there are jokes that you and I have pointed out small things about why they're funny to each other. And I think that, there was a Family Guy joke I shared with you recently where Peter just walks out of a room and says, was one of the dwarves named Snappy kind of a good dresser, or am I making that up? And I thought that was so funny. And I shared that with you, and you said something like, fuck, that's good writing, but you were high at the time.
Well, we recorded that Family for the Patreon, the watching Family Guy funny clips, and the one I remembered from that was the Obi-Wan Kenobi joke, which I was just like, God, I'm annoyed at how well that sets up like a killer punchline. So yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Shall we end there?
I mean, I feel like I didn't really get one.
Ah.